Everybody, it's Nicole. I'm here today to share with you how I made these cards using a really fun die from Spellbinders. This one here has 4 different little patterns, and I chose the one that has some flowers and leaves on it, but I wanted to design my background first, so I didn't want to just die it out of pattern paper, so I decided to play with some of the Vicki Boutin art crayons. And what I've done here is just use a piece of acetate, and I've added some of the art crayons. I just added a little bit of water with my mister and then rubbed it gently just to kind of blend all the color. And I'm just placing that onto my watercolor cardstock that I have here, and I'm just dragging the color around. Takes a little bit of time to get used to how much water you need to add, so do play around on some scraps like I did before you get started. But these crayons are really easy to use, and you can see they really color that watercolor paper really well. You can get lots of bright pigment from that, so super easy. You can see again here I have some purples and pinks. I've just scribbled some of the art crayons on there, added some more water, a little more water this time than the first, and so I kind of lost a little bit of the pink, so I'm just going to add a little bit more and just smush it on there. And then you can, if you're using a plastic sheet like this, you can just drag it around to kind of move your color a little bit. I'm kind of trying to do a bit of a rainbow. I'm not going to actually, I'm going to dye each color. So I'm just trying to blend similar colors. So this one here is a bit of a 2 shades of green and almost like a tealy kind of green color. And again, just adding the crayon, adding the water, and then dragging it across. And you can always add more, can't take it away though, so you got to be careful. I'm also going to just make a little bit of a black here for later just to do some droplets. Now you have to let this dry. That's kind of key. You have to be patient, and you have to let the watercolor paper dry so that you can die cut it. You can see here I just have my Cuttlebug, and I'm going to run that die all the way through the entirety of that watercolor background. So I'm going to start with the green and then just move my way all the way up. I'm going to allow myself some space in between each of the dyed sections, just because I want to make 2 different cards using that same paper. I'm going to use the positive and the negative part. So you can see there I've just left a little bit of space so that I can trim that out in a few minutes. So really easy. You can see the die cuts the paper really well. I'm just sorting each color, and super fun little intricate flowers and leafy patterns. I love them. I can see using that leaf for layering on layouts too. So there's my all completed dyed background. So I'm just going to snip those down by each row of the die. At first, when I opened up the die package, I thought the dies were all stuck together, so it was like almost like a border die, but they're not. You get all these fun little individual pieces, which is cool. But I kind of wanted that bordered effect, so that's why I kind of kept them in the row like this. And now I'm just going to piece a few of them back together and cover the front of a card. So I really wanted to make the most use that I could of my watercolored background. So by using the positive and the negative part of the die, that's how I did that. So I kind of have the colors that I want to use here. I'm just going to grab a scrap of white cardstock and just start layering those pieces back together, not quite tight to each other. I want to leave a little bit of gap just to add some interest on the front of the card. So I'm just going to add that in there. It's a little bit more than I need, but I'm going to trim that down here. But first I've just added a row of stitching along each of those pieces of watercolored dyed areas. So I'm just going to trim that down to that size of that scrap of cardstock that I have. Trim off any of my little threads from my sewing machine, and then I'm going to cut that to layer onto the front of my card base. So I'm just going to trim that down, and I hit my camera there. I'm very sorry. And I realized it's kind of a little bit too flat on that white background, so I'm just going to layer a piece of black cardstock in behind there just to make that color just pop just a little bit more, just a tiny thin layer in behind. And then I want to have the whole thing pop up on my card front. So I'm just going to grab, I have a shaped foam adhesive that I've been using, and so I have some of the leftovers, so I just cut the whole piece and use that to layer my card front to the card base. I have a scrap here of craft cardstock, so I'm just going to stamp a sentiment. This was a exclusive SCT stamp set we had for one of the classes at the Crop and Create events. And I really love this hello font, so I'm going to cut that into a little pennant shape here on some craft cardstock. And that's going to be my sentiment for the card. And I'm just going to layer that on top with a little bit of adhesive. And I just do a little bit of staples to kind of decorate the corner. And I will pop that up as well again. You can see I'm using all the little bits I have left over from my foam adhesive. It's a great way to use that all up. And now I have that black that I made earlier dried up a little bit on me, but I just added a little bit more water, added it to a paintbrush, and just lightly flicked it over the top of the card. Very subtle black droplets here. You can see I've also used some punched flowers that I punched from a scrap of watercolor paper. So now I'm going on to the second card. The second card, I'm going to use those tiny little flowers that were die cut from the die. So there's a rainbow of colors, and I just want to kind of curve them a little to add some dimension. So I'm going to use my pencil and my fingers just to kind of move them a little, bend them, just so the card's a little more fun. And so I'm going to arrange them in a bit of a rainbow type of pattern on the front of the card. I hadn't really thought too much about how many I was going to use, but I wanted to just stamp a simple sentiment and let the watercolor dyed flowers be the star of the show. So I have these great outline letter stamps, from Lawn Fawn, and I'm going to use those just to start off my title here. Really great tall font, perfect for scrapbooking too, but really great to add a nice bold title on your card front. And then again, I have another stamp from the SCT exclusive stamps, and to add the word love. And so I'm just going to fill in now, and I'm going to pop some of the, I decided I wasn't going to pop actually those flowers on the front because they're curved. They add a lot of dimension on their own. So I'm just going to add a little small glue dot there in behind each of those flowers, just to get them to adhere onto the card front the way I like them. And really, I didn't want to lose any of those little cute die cut flowers, so I wanted to use as many as I possibly could. I have a bonus card at the end of the video that I did use some of the leaves that I didn't quite use because they're just too pretty not to waste. Like, who wants to waste them? So I'm stamping on texture cardstock's not always easy, so I noticed I had to fill that in a little with my black journaling marker, so don't be afraid to do that as well if you have that same problem. And I'm just tucking in some leaves of the same kind of color group onto the front. And now I decided there's too much open area on that left side of the card, so I corner rounded it a little bit. And I decided I didn't want to add leaves, but I would add a few more flowers in similar colors in and around, just to kind of stretch everything out a little bit more. And I really wanted to use those flowers, so that helped me make more use of all those pretty details. So a couple leaves too now tucked in. And then I'm just going to add some pretty things to the center of those flowers. A really simple card. Because you have all that pretty watercolored look, there's really not a lot you need to really add to a card like this one. It's clean and simple, and sometimes those are just the best ones, right? Nice and easy, no stress, and kind of fun too. Good to try something different and stretch your stash. So I have a tracing wheel here that I'm using, and I'm just rubbing it on some black ink. Can't really see from the video camera angle, but I promise you I'll show you that in the detailed shot at the end. But just to add a little bit of faux stitching, I like to use that. And then again, I added, as you saw there, some black flecks of that watercolor ink or distress crayon, watercolor crayon. And I'm just going to use some more scraps, as you can see, of my foam adhesive. And same thing, I start off by putting this onto the front of the card, and then I do realize that the white background on the white card front just kind of didn't pop again. So I went, like I did with the first card, and added another piece of black cardstock in behind that watercolored background there. And you can see that really just makes those colors all pop just a little bit more, and so much more pretty. And then how easy was that? So use one die, made 2 cards using the positive and the negative. Super simple. All you really need to do is layer them on a card front, add some little rivets like I'm adding here from Queen & Company to the center of them. And really that's it. Like, so fun, so easy, and really didn't take me a lot of time. I think from the start of these cards to the end, including drying time, was about 20 minutes. And look how pretty that looks, all pretty and watercolored. I love that you could do this over and over again and get a different look. There's that bonus card I was talking about with the leaf pieces just layered along the side of the card. So much fun. I had a really great time making these cards. I hope you like them. I hope you'll give those art crayons a try. Use them with your dies. I think they'll go a lot farther than you think. And thanks so much for joining me here on the SCT blog. I'll see you again next month. Bye-bye.